Hey guys, welcome back to my YouTube channel. So in this video today, I'm going to be talking about exactly what van you should look at when you're looking to get a camper van. What size, what age, what price, and I'm going to be answering all of that in this video today. So I've had a few vans myself, but I have been around a lot of people that have had different setups. So the opinions I'm kind of sharing here are a mixture of my own and also those of people around me that I've kind of learned from. So I'm just passing on that knowledge. So I think the first thing to consider when you're looking at getting a new van to convert into a camper van is firstly, how big do you want the van to be? Now, I think that when you scroll through Instagram, you see these vans that are converted and they're super complicated, and oftentimes I think for the average UK van lifer or wherever you are, how often are you really going to be using this van? A setup that you want to sleep in 1 or maybe 2 nights a week is going to be so different to something that you're going to be sleeping in indefinitely and living in. So you can really change up the vehicle you get based on that. I see a lot of people that are trying to go way overboard and overcomplicate their van camping setups when honestly they're not even going to use the van that much. For example, my most recent purchase, my Nissan Elgrand, I've gone for a pretty small van that only has a bed in the back with very basic features because I know that I'm not going to be really using that van all that much. Even if I'm in it for 5 days or even a week, I can survive on the features I've got. But if I was going to be moving into a van and living in it, I'd probably want to go for some more extravagant design options. So that's the first thing to consider. A thing that I took into consideration when I was getting my most recent van is how easy is it going to be to park. So I live in the middle of Bristol where parking is kind of an issue. So if the van was any longer than my size, it would be pretty hard to park unless I parked it on some random side street because we don't have a drive. Another thing is how high should the van be, because if you're going to be someone that drives around the city a lot and maybe you're parking in multi-storey car parks, it'd be easier for you to park a van if it doesn't have a pop top or an extended roof like some of the vans you see do. But if you want that convenience for standing up inside, it's just something you have to weigh up. Another thing to consider is what age of van you want. So depending on what your motivation is behind getting this van, that is going to change a lot in terms of what you want out of it. So for me, I currently have 2 vehicles, one that I'm doing a restoration on, a 1970 Volkswagen Transporter, and that is something that for me is just a project that I'm doing for looks purposes. I'm enjoying the build, I'm learning along the way, I'm installing hydraulic suspension on it, and it's going to have a cool camping interior, but I'm by no means going to be living in that van. That's just a project that I'm doing as a bit of a show car and something for fun that I'll use at weekends. Whereas my more modern 2006 Nissan Elgrand is a van that I can use pretty frequently without worrying if it's going to break down. There's no rust in it either. I didn't have to do a full restoration. I bought it and within a week I was camping in it and sleeping. So you've got to think, do I want to buy into the dream of seeing this classic camper van driving down the road, or do I want the functionality of a modern vehicle that I can just get in and drive and enjoy within a few weeks? So you have to weigh that one up. I think a really good tip that I've taken on from others is to buy the best base vehicle you can and then do the rest if you want to. So I bought classic cars in the past that have been an amazing vehicle, but they've taken me 3-4 years to build, and that has kind of got to the point where by the end of the build, I enjoyed the journey, but I don't even need the vehicle anymore. My life has changed so much that I didn't need it. So if you're going to buy a restoration project that's an old Volkswagen camper or an older vehicle of other kinds, that's cool, but you just got to consider, am I buying this for now, or am I planning for what I want to do in 2 years? So the build times of projects always take so much longer than you would think, so just take that into consideration. So on that subject of buying an old vehicle, I'm definitely not against classic cars. Like I said, I've had old VW Beetles, had one that was super low, static, and polished and painted. I've had another one that was super low and it was kind of rat-look patina. That was a 1956 oval. So I've had old cars before, and like I said, I've got this 1970 bay window now that I'm restoring. So last year for a short while I had another bay window camper, and that was good fun, but again, I learned a lot using that because I realised that even doing a 3-hour drive from here down to Devon and Cornwall and back just brought up endless mechanical issues. I had to get the brakes rebuilt completely after going down some steep hills in Devon, and I just couldn't get back up. I had some interior issues where the windows wouldn't quite shut, and it's all fun and we love classic cars, but the reason I purchased this slightly newer vehicle is just because I know now that I can go away. I could drive up to Scotland or do a 4-hour road trip without worrying about it breaking down. So you've got to consider the age. Another thing to think about is how much of the work do you want to do yourself? So you might be sat there thinking, in an ideal world, you could build an entire custom camper van from scratch, from design, and it could be your dream #vanlife build. But in reality, how much time do you have? Do you have the time to have 3 months off work to do this build and then go and live in this off-grid vehicle? Or do you want to do a little bit of the work yourself, put your own doormat in, put a nice duvet cover on the bed and get somebody else to do the work? It's one of those things where building a camper van could cost as little as £3,000–4,000, $5,000, or it can go all the way up to 30–40K if you're spending so much more money. So it's not fair to compare both. I think if you can find the best base vehicle possible, if you're looking for a slightly bigger vehicle, look for something that has been maybe already converted partially and someone's given up. That's often where you can find some really good bargains. So I spend loads of time just scrolling through eBay, Auto Trader, Facebook Marketplace, just looking for vehicles that have been partway done. And that's kind of what I did with my Nissan. So even though that wasn't a camper van, the wheels had already been changed, it had been recently serviced, and it was just a great base vehicle for me to jump in and go. But if I was looking for a slightly bigger van, what I might consider is trying to find something like a Crafter or a Sprinter that already had some of the features in there that's going to save me money. Because in reality, if you're the one doing all the work, yes, you can save money on labour, but you won't necessarily save money overall. If you're having to outsource and pay other people to do that build, you will probably save money by just buying someone else's half-finished van and then tweaking it to your own standards. So that's worked really well for me and my dad in the past, who's had many vans. So buying vehicles that are partially converted, maybe they already have a solar charging system, they've got a shower, they've got a bed built, and you can just change out the layout. That could work really well, because at the end of the day, you don't really know what you need in a van until you've gone out and you've done some trips and you've tested it. So a great thing to do is maybe even to hire a camper van that's one size, and then the next trip hire one that's another size, or obviously borrow one from a friend, and just see what works for you, because that's what I've been trying to do with my current van. I've just been going out on trips and realizing, what do I really need? And I've noticed that there are small things that I add to the list every single day that I know I need. Maybe it's storage in a certain location, or it's the luxury of having a sink or a toilet or a shower, but you don't know that you need that until you're on the trip. There's no point dropping 20 or 30K on a huge van build if you're just going to be using it at the weekends. But then that's all dependent on your own budget and your own decisions, because obviously you can do what you want to do, but you know, I'm making this video for the purpose of trying to make this an efficient process where you know that you're not going to waste money on things that are really unnecessary. My dad had a very small van that was a builder's size Renault Traffic, and he was living in it a lot of the time at weekend trips and stuff like that for the past few years. And he fitted a diesel heater, he fitted a cooker and a sink unit, and he never used any of that stuff, only the heater, because the majority of the time he found that he just needed the bed. It's one of those things that you just got to weigh up. What will I actually need versus what do I think I need? And doing it little and often over time is the best way to go, in my opinion, because these projects are never done and you never know what you're going to need. Just like with any classic car build, you think you have an idea of what you want and then you go out and test it and it will be something different. Honestly, there are so many decisions to make, but in my experience of having driven classic cars and more modern campers, I think going for a base vehicle that's been well looked after, isn't necessarily low mileage, but has had well recorded service history, is always going to be the best bet. And the least amount of rust you can get on the outside of your vehicle possible, the better. Because trust me, if you have to spend 2 years welding up the van before you can even go out and enjoy it, you'll probably have lost motivation by the time it comes to actually using that van and going out there and enjoying it. And obviously the climate you're in is gonna be a factor as to what van you want to pick, because I'm based in England in the UK and the weather's usually pretty cold here. So it's pretty important to insulate your van and have a heating system and stuff like that. Whereas if you're in the US or you're in other warmer parts of the world, maybe you need to think about, how am I going to keep my van cool? It could need insulation, it could need a fan and ventilation, stuff like that. Openable windows, they're all things to consider. And that actually reminds me of another point. When you are looking at a van, you have to consider, do I want a builder's panel van, something that's completely closed off for that stealth camper look, or do I want some big old obvious windows and a pop top and go full send on the camper van look? Because I think for me, I've always erred on the side of enjoying that stealth feeling of being able to camp anywhere. And with my most recent purchase, my Nissan, That's pretty much the reason I got it. I wanted to get a vehicle that I could go anywhere in the UK and not be super obvious, because the last vehicle I had, my 1970 Bay, I was driving around in that and it was so obvious where I was parking. I had these tartan curtains and I've had, you know, a bay window before that that had a nice pop top, this old Westphalia one. And again, it's awesome and it's good for Instagram posts, but in reality, what do I need it for? I need a van now to sleep in fairly, you know, stealthy locations sometimes, and I don't want someone knocking on my window in the middle of the night. It's about that. If you're designing a van that's going to be used off-grid and you're going to be parking in random places, maybe you want it to look slightly less like a camper van and a bit more stealthy. But if you're thinking I'm just going to be driving with my family and my kids to a campsite, you can probably afford to make it look a bit more luxurious, have the pop top, have all those extra features, and not worry about, you know, the police coming by and telling you to move on, or a farmer trying to get you off their land. So those are some of the things I'd consider if you're looking to build a van. That's just coming from my own experience. I'm sure over the coming years, as I gain even more experience here, I'm going to have some completely different thoughts on this all, but I thought I'd share a video now because I've had a few people asking me on my Instagram and friends of mine that I think this video would be a useful resource for, so I hope that helped. As always guys, if you are liking the videos on this channel, there are going to be more just like this. Please just consider subscribing and just keep following along with everything that I do, because I'm putting out as much as I can, and this is a new channel that I'm going to be documenting my van life journey and the builds I'm doing, the car builds I'm doing, so follow along if you're enjoying it. But anyway, I will see you in the next video.